This is Tim.
And this is Graeme.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo, and I recruited a new voice for Critiquing Comics this time. It's Graeme in Kobe? Still in Kobe?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. And you?
I'm okay. Yeah, so we used to hear from Graeme on the podcast fairly regularly at the comics shows in Tokyo, but even the year before the pandemic, the Tokyo comic shows kind of vanished. And
I haven't been to Tokyo for years now, so I haven't seen anyone out that side for a while.
And then, was it 20? I guess it was 2017 that I was in Kobe.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about the Kyoto Comics Museum.
Yeah,
Manga Museum.
Show. Yeah.
Yeah. A long time ago.
Yeah.
So, the comic this time is called Purgatory, written by Don Juan Mancha III. Artist's presumably pen name is anubisazp. I cannot pronounce it correctly, I imagine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's sounds reasonable for the spelling anyway.
Anubisazp. And then inker is nikokosi.
Yeah.
Or Kosik. I get in the credits page inside it says, Nikola Kosik. That's the full name.
And then there is one other artist too. One of the chapters.
Melody Calderon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, boy, I had trouble understanding this comic. So there are these various characters who are kind of wandering around, and there's a lot of talk of people saying, "Oh, I'm dead," and apparently they are ghosts or something. Well, in fact, there's a whole sequence of actually being in hell, but also there's one of the characters is apparently schizophrenic and trying to get his medication for that, and it seems like it's becoming harder and harder to get the medication. So, yeah. I read the whole thing, but I was really not sure what to make of it. I mean, I'm not even sure what to say about it. The art's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's good. It's not completed yet, right? It's still ongoing.
Right, yeah, this is not the whole story.
It's like the copy that we've got is like 4 issues and then like a bonus issue and a couple of short bonus stories, right? It's like something like that. It seems to be, and it's all like you said. Like when I read it, I didn't know what was going on either, and there's kind of like little hints, like you said, about it. Doesn't say from the beginning or anything that this is like purgatory or people are dead or they're ghosts. It's just kind of revealed little by little in like little dialogue segments, like. Which I quite liked how that was not obvious at first.
Yeah, well, it might be such a thing that if you read whatever future chapters there are, that then it would become clearer. I hope. I'm not sure. For Critiquing Comics, when Mulele was doing it with me, we would have some comics that were just incomprehensible, and it's the kind of thing where the artist is trying to hold back all these secrets, thinking it'll keep you going and keep you interested, and instead we were both kind of losing interest because we felt so lost. This comic, I don't know, I felt like I was getting almost enough that I wasn't turning against the comic, like in some of those other cases where like, oh, screw this.
Yeah.
But this, I kind of felt like if I just kept reading a little more, it would make sense. I kind of felt like I was missing something. It was my fault that I wasn't getting it. Or that I don't know enough about schizophrenia, or I don't know enough about being a ghost, or I don't know. Like I felt like it was my fault that I didn't understand it.
Yeah, I kind of, yeah, I did feel like that. Like the first, no, I think it was like the first mention of being dead. I just blanked over it, didn't really notice it
Uh,
at all. But it was the second one, and I was like, wait a minute, and I kind of went back, and I don't know if that's good in a way because you're kind of Well, I guess it's good. They're dripping in like little bits of information here and there, and I guess it is good that you kind of go back and look at something again and then go forward. Um,
mhm.
And then, like you said, I felt confused, but then there's like 3 or 4 times it comes up that someone is dead. So you're starting to think like, oh, okay, maybe my first intuition was right. Like they are dead. This is Purgatory. That's the title of the book. I guess
Uh-huh.
that makes sense.
But yeah, then I felt I didn't quite understand how the schizophrenia fit into it because the one character, Ryan, I think his name is, he's got long hair, and at first I wasn't sure of his gender, but yeah, they were calling him Ryan, so I guess it's a guy. But I started to wonder, like, is the being dead supposed to be like? Does it actually mean something about schizophrenia, or are they two separate things going on in this comic? I wasn't quite sure what they were both doing together in this comic.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that either. I was wondering if is this whole thing going to be like in the mind of this schizophrenic character, or is it just that in Purgatory you still have medical problems? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's the kind. I guess in the chapters that we have, that question's not answered, so it's hard to
Yeah,
comment on it.
but also,
Yeah,
so it so happens that just recently on the podcast, we've talked about a comic related to autism and a comic related to bipolar. And in both of those cases, I kind of felt like if I knew more about the illness, I would have understood the comic better. Like the
yeah,
comic felt, and this comic may also be doing that, like assuming a little more knowledge of the illness from the reader than the reader may necessarily have.
yeah. Could be. Although Ryan is probably one of the main characters in the story, right?
Hmm.
There's maybe that Ryan and this little girl that's in it are probably the two main characters. But a lot of the story is not from Ryan's point of view,
Yeah.
so that makes me think it's not all like in his head. Maybe.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of scenes we see without him in it. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess you'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
and
know anything about the disease either. So I don't know.
I read a little bit about it after I read the comic, but
Okay.
and it can include having like hallucinations. So, and there's some references to that in the comic, I think. Now, there are some pages where it suddenly becomes color, and I felt like that was trying to communicate something too, that being in color meant he was in like a different state of mind, or I don't know if that's a hallucination when it's in color.
Yeah, I wasn't. My first thought was that the color sequences were like flashback to when they were alive.
Okay.
That was my first thought. But then there's like a couple. There's like a panel. There's like one single panel in color. I don't know. Like the first color panel that we see, it's just like one single panel with a hand reaching for some pills, like they're spilt on the floor. So
Mm-hmm.
that makes me think like, what? Well, is this maybe that is a flashback, just a one panel flashback? The color, there is more color sequences, right? There's one near the end where we see like Ryan's
Yeah,
flattening.
there's a whole thing starting on page 50 of the PDF where we see this other guy who is up on the billboard with a spray can. He wants to do graffiti, and then he falls off, but then so he's a different person. He's not Ryan, but then we see Ryan lying on the ground, and there's a spray can next to him, and a hooded figure comes up to him, and he's like, there's no background there, so it's like maybe this is in some other plane maybe. And Ryan gets up, and the hooded figure has this circle on his hand. The circle is a motif going through the whole thing. And then Ryan has a circle on his hand. And then it switches back to black and white, and Ryan is lying on his sofa. So maybe it's a dream, a dream or a hallucination when it's in color.
Yeah, that could be another possibility. You're right. I was really confused with that sequence because I thought we were seeing Ryan's, like how Ryan died, basically, was what I thought we jumped to. Because it started off with Ryan, like, kind of falling on the ground. Well, Ryan's hand goes up in the air in black and white. And then the next page, he catches a spray can in color. And...
Now, this character who's wearing the mask, who's up on the billboard, I think we see him elsewhere in the story. He is not Ryan.
Yeah, at first I thought it was. Like first reading, I thought it was. And then about halfway through the following conversation with that character, I kind of went back and thought, oh, okay,
it's a different guy.
This is this character.
Yeah.
Because he starts talking about his artwork and stuff, but it wasn't clear at first. I mean, isn't there a panel where that guy with the spray can falls off, but then we see Ryan falling in the air?
Right. Yeah, that was the sequence I was talking about.
Yeah, so it could be in Ryan's head like a dream.
Where it looks like he's lying on the ground, yeah. But, yeah, then I think in the sequence right after, where he's in the apartment and eating with this guy, I think that kid that he's talking with is the guy who was spray painting the sign. Yeah.
So I got that, like, reading through that scene. But at first it wasn't clear at all.
And
Which I guess is intentional.
Yeah, and then this kid has been spray painting a whole big design on the roof of the building.
Which was the same design on the billboard, right?
Yeah. And then he talks about when he was falling. Yeah, he said, I thought a highway sign would be safer. I was wrong. As I was falling, you know what my last thought was? I don't even like this girl, the one that he's been spray painting.
Which was his brother's girlfriend, and his brother also died or something. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and on the billboard, you can see the billboard is entirely made up of that design.
Which says dead or alive, actually. So maybe that's the clue there.
Mm-hmm.
The sign itself that he was painting says dead or alive. So I guess we're maybe that's a hint. Like, are they actually dead or are they alive? And this is just a hallucination, like you said.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't know.
No.
It could be either.
No, there's. I mean, I think it's kind of a deep comic, but it's just a little too deep to understand at this point, at least for me.
Yeah, like as a reader, you kind of want. You don't want everything at once, but you kind of want a little bit more.
Yes.
At this stage.
Yeah, let me in on it just a little bit more so I can kind of get a sense of what's going on.
Yeah, because by the time I got to the end of the 4 chapters, and then there's the 5th bonus chapter thing in the middle, and I felt like the story hadn't progressed that much. Like, I wasn't sure.
It just felt like there were these like vignettes or vignettes. What's the right pronunciation of that word? Just all these kind of little scenes that might fit together. But yeah, this forward progress of the story was negligible.
Yeah, and I could only remember one character's name at the end of it, which was the Ryan character, which is maybe not a good sign. And I thought I read it quite carefully. What do you think about this section in the middle with like hell? There's this whole color section with the different artists in the center. Well,
where the guy's in hell and he's helping that bodiless girl get a body.
Yeah.
It was weird. I couldn't quite figure out what it had to do with the rest of the story. Well, yeah, now the fact that it's all in color might mean that it's somebody's hallucination or dream.
I quite like how, like, we have this main story with Ryan, But then we have this hell chapter, and then there's a chapter with a girl on a bus. And then there's another chapter with, I think it's one of the kind of hitmen characters getting killed.
Right, kind of like how he died. We had seen that guy earlier on after he was already dead, and he was looking for that little girl who's also dead.
Yeah, so I quite like that we have this main story going on, and then sometimes it breaks off, and we see these other things that are not directly related to the main story, but they're kind of like world building in a way. They're kind of like... It reminds me of Sandman, actually. Like Neil Gaiman does this a lot, right? He has his main story, but then he also has these like interludes with, you know, like the character on the bus. We don't see again in the rest of the comic, but you feel pretty sure that character is going to turn up again later on at some point. And
yeah,
it just kind of like, yeah, we got to see like I think it's a girl dying, right? Like she's on the bus driven by Anubis, and
right.
I guess it's just kind of showing how people get to purgatory, like the ferryman, except in this case it's a busman. I quite like that kind of style of storytelling where you take these little breaks and fill in things that don't quite make sense at first, but maybe later will all come together.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't an unpleasant experience reading the comic. I was just wishing that it would give me a little bit more guidance in at least knowing what it is that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so what information am I trying to get as I keep reading? I wasn't quite sure. I need to be oriented a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what the main, like this little girl character that opens the comic, like she's getting chased by these hitmen. Like, I'm still not sure what that's all about, really. She seems to be able to control the drawing, the circles, and like the posters on the wall kind of comment on her movement in the comic. Like when she runs past something, it says "run."
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, but I don't know. I just felt like after 5 chapters, I kind of want to know more.
Yes,
a little bit, just a little bit more, like just a little bit more.
Right.
I want to feel like we're going somewhere.
Right. Yeah. I didn't feel like it wasn't necessary. It just felt it was kind of meandering, and yeah, I didn't have a sense of story progress. And it's so the last story page in the book is page 160. So there's a lot of it here. But yeah, just
and it ends with like Ryan is going on a quest to get something, but I can't even remember what it is now. Do you remember? It's like he's called to go and get something for the girl.
Well, yeah, the little girl. We must hammer out the terms of this challenge. That's what I'm running from. I need to get to Silen, Silen. I need to keep this safe. I don't know what this is. Ryan says, I need to think about this. This is a lot. And the girl says, you have till tomorrow. He says, wait, I need more. And then it changes to black and white, and he's lying in bed. He says, time. And he gets up, and then he lays back down, and that's the end for this volume.
Yeah. So I guess is Silen some kind of reference to something that we just don't know? Or
I guess.
Or is it, I mean, like, is it a classical reference, or is it something made up for this comic? I'm just Googling it now, but I don't see
there was another word, now I don't remember what it was, that I realized was the name of a medication.
Oh, okay.
Silen might also be, what was the one that I looked up? I need to look at my browser history, my search history. Maybe that will remind me. Dolorin. At some point in the story, Dolorin was mentioned, and it sounded they were using it as if it were a place name, but it is the name of a medication.
Okay, that's interesting. That went over my head when I.
Well, it sounded a little medicine-y to me, so I thought, I wonder if that's medication. So Solarin is a character in World of Warcraft.
Okay. So it's nothing like that, but maybe there is something we're not aware of.
Yeah, it must be
know.
a reference to something, but
I think in the classic Quest, right, there's always a bit where the hero has to first refuse the quest before he takes it. And I guess that's what's happening at the end. But I'm kind of like, it's on page 160, just like accept it and go.
Yeah. You've put it off long enough. I guess we're
impatient. I mean, maybe we're just too impatient for like a slow burner. Wait, I'm just going back, and there's these two twins on a chain. That was weird. Do you remember? And they're talking to like a king,
right?
Hellspawn, or something. And he's got like he's kidnapped one of their sisters or something. So that means there's a third sister.
I guess.
Something like that. Anyway. So, there's quite a lot of characters, actually, in this. This book. It's not, like, focusing on just one guy going through his story. There must be a lot of characters.
Right, and a lot of them are dead.
Yeah.
And I'm not clear if Ryan is alive or dead, or if he just has schizophrenia.
Well, the first time we see him, like, they don't show you his face at all, but then he kind of falls over and you see his face for the first time and he has no eyes. And I'm guessing that no eyes thing means he's dead.
I don't know. We're just going to sit here and speculate.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
that's
this.
What the writer intention was, I guess.
Anyway.
Oh, there's a giant robot in it too, actually.
Right, there is some kind of a robot with a big eye on its head, and you see it as a miniature in some of the early scenes, and then later it becomes huge.
But it never. There's like a newspaper the next day that kind of mentions there was some kind of attack, but we never really see what happened, right? The reason I didn't even think this was Purgatory in the beginning is because the first picture is like a woman doing her washing, right? And then people just walking in the street like normally. They're going to work. They get hungover. They're sick still. It's almost like there's nothing different between living in Purgatory in this this vision of Purgatory. Like it's pretty much the same as just everyday life. Except they don't have eyes.
And there are some pages, like we're at the end of a chapter, where there are these strange characters, some kind of like foreign alphabet.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's made up, but I don't know actually. I don't know.
Although as I'm looking at them, I'm starting to notice that some of them appear to be letters, like there's an A and maybe that's an E at the end, but I can't make out some of the other characters as any particular Roman letter, so I don't know.
Okay, so it could be a language we don't know, and it's just fancy font, or it could just be made up, right?
Yeah.
How many Purgat? Yeah, it's too short for being Purgatory. But I guess in this language it could be.
It could be.
Less letters. It could be like Japanese with syllables. Anyway, so basically we have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions that are not answered by reading this PDF.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this was okay, but yeah, not quite a satisfying read because we're still kind of in the dark about most of what's going on. Yeah,
and just a little bit too much than is kind of comfortable, right?
Yes. Okay. Okay, so listeners, if you would like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we will read it and talk about it on the show. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Graeme.
Thank you.